So welcome everybody. My name is Emily Kile. So I'm thrilled to have you all here today, and we're very excited to have Liz as a speaker from Plan of Arizona. So she's going to talk a little bit about Pooled Special Needs Trust, which when I try to explain what that means to people, I will say like jumping in the pool. So you have a whole pool of beneficiaries who all have the same kinds of needs in terms of that they have benefits that they need to be able to retain. And so this is a way to get a professional trustee at a lower cost and a trustee whose entire job is focused on making sure that the public benefits will remain in place if that is what is appropriate, and know how to do reporting and what distributions can and can't be made from special needs trusts, whether those are first party special needs trusts or third party special needs trusts. So with that, Liz, you should be able to share your screen and get any materials up on the screen that you'd like to.
Okay, I'll do it right now. Here we go. Share. And I will change this to a different format. So my name is Liz Kozloff, and as Emily said, I'm the Executive Director for Plan of Arizona. We're the only Arizona-based pooled trust organization in Arizona. There's a lot of national ones that have a presence here in Arizona, but we are just state specific to Arizona. So I'm gonna, talk a little bit, gotta get to the beginning there, excuse me. Hold on, let me start from the beginning. Okay, from the beginning, here we go. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about pooled trusts, and then also what pooled trusts, the services that they provide on a national level. So there's organizations all over the United States that are state specific or regional specific that provide a lot of other services that some of the larger pooled trusts and banks and stuff don't offer. So one of the most important things that we talk about is really planning for the future with families. I have a sister with disabilities, with cognitive or intellectual disabilities. And so I know one of the most important things that my parents have planned for is, what's going to happen when they're gone? What is she going to need to live the best life possible? What does that look like? So why do we plan for the future is, for our adult children to live the best life possible, safely, securely, and independently as possible. So it's necessary for them to make sure that they have that money that's there in the trust, that they, legally, whether it's a different type of corporate trustee, you have somebody that knows what they're doing in administering this trust, that they're emotionally supported, and that also they have some social aspects. Obviously, one of the most important things is protecting assets and maintaining the eligibility, and also watching out for predators. We have a lot of vulnerable adults, and we've had people move into their house or try to take advantage of them. So having that money secured in a trust and someone providing that oversight to make sure that that people aren't trying to take advantage of them. When there's no plan, we don't know what happens when there's no plan. It's so important for families when the children are at a young age to really start thinking about what a plan looks like. What are they going to need to have those supports in place? So some of the things that goes into a plan, click to the next slide, work. If they can have a job, not all individuals can have a job. I know my sister waters plants at a nursery and she loves it. It gives her a little social outlet. She has a home that she can live in that offers that stability. She's got money in a trust. Friends are a little harder, especially with COVID right now. We're not all socializing like we used to, but having some community supports in place and having some, money for things like entertainment. So one of the first steps, obviously, in planning is deciding what kind of monetary supports go in to maintain the quality of life for the beneficiary. People always ask, well, how much do I need to put into a trust? And, I say, well, that's a good question. So you think about the money that you put in monthly and then times 12, so it's annually, and then based on the life expectancy. So pretty much as possible. And some of the other things is establishing a special needs trust. So there's various types of trusts. You know, people can go to attorneys like Emily and establish an individual trust. And some of the benefits of that, obviously, is they can hold other assets in the trust, like a home or mineral rights or certain stocks. You know, and maybe there's certain parameters that you want in the trust. So, you know, those are good reasons to create an individual trust. For a pooled trust, we can take trusts of any size, but typically it's lower assets. People, you know, maybe only have $20,000 or $30,000 to put into trust. And we have some that are up to $1 million, but typically they would go to an individual trust for that. But it's a pooled trust is a great way for families to join our pool. It's really fast, and I'll explain more about the pool trust in just a little bit. We also do support trusts, so maybe the person is not on public benefits and they don't need a special needs trust, but maybe they're not good with their spending, or they have drug issues, or for whatever reason the parents don't want them just to have the lump sum of money. So we can also do support trusts. And then people always ask, well, how do trusts get funded? Well, they get funded with life insurance is probably one of the biggest ones that we see. Home equity, so parents have a home that maybe gets sold as part of their estate planning, that money goes into a trust. Also investments. Obviously, the rewards of planning are peace of mind. So one of the favorite things or parts of my job that I love is when families, you know, they've talked to their attorney, maybe they've named us a successor trustee, or they join our pool, and it's just a huge burden for them. They're like, okay, we have a plan, we know what's going to happen, the beneficiary knows what's going to happen, and it gives everybody peace of mind. And I know for a lot of beneficiaries, I know for my sister, she worries, well, gosh, what's going to happen when my mom dies? You know, who's going to be there? And of course, I'll be there, but sometimes there aren't siblings. So, you know, for them knowing, and we encourage families as they're planning to get to know us. So if they've listed us as successor trustee, we like having annual meetings with them so that we can meet the beneficiary. The beneficiary knows who we are. We develop a relationship. So it's not, oh, mom and dad just passed away and who's Plan of Arizona. And if it's, you know, you pick another corporate trustee, you know, it's important to get to know them too. So that it's, the continuum of care is super important for people with disabilities. So Emily kind of talked a little bit about special needs trust. So obviously the special needs trust is established for the benefit of beneficiary who's disabled. They're on SSI and access, or, you know, whatever other types of benefits that, you know, have income limits. It protects the assets of an individual with a disability. And again, I think one of the important things is we have beneficiaries who maybe ran up credit card bills, or might be subject to liens of some sort, so they can't really attach that to the special needs trust. I don't know if there's any way they can at all, Emily, but you would probably know better than I do, but if we've never had it happen where someone's been able to attach to the trust. Sorry, not talking well today. It improves their quality of life without disqualifying them from the eligibility of their public benefits like SSI. And again, that creditor protection is super important. So as Emily was saying, there's different types of trusts. There's the self-settled, or that's when it's their own money. So a lot of times, you know, aunts and uncles will leave an inheritance to a disabled beneficiary without putting it into a special needs trust. So they, you know, receive that inheritance directly. We do a lot of settlements where there's a car accident and someone is now disabled. So those are first party special needs trusts. And then there's third party, which is typically the parents funding the money for a beneficiary, but we've had other people, we've had brothers and sisters or aunts and uncles that establish a trust and put money into that. And it's third party money, so it was never the beneficiary's money. So some of the different things with a first party special needs trust It's only available to disabled individuals under the age of 65. It has to be established by the disabled individual, a parent, a grandparent, guardian, or the court. Again, it's protected from lien holders. There's a mandatory payback provision to Medicaid if there's money owed to Medicaid. If there's on long-term care, I think typically it's more apt to have a payback. The assets are exempt under public benefits, and the distributions, and this is a big one for us, is the distributions are made for the sole discretion of the trustee. So oftentimes our beneficiaries are like, well, I want to buy my kids Christmas presents. And we're like, well, the money is your money for your sole benefit. So we can't, give you money for Christmas presents for other people. And that's just a really important one. And the funds are used to supplement, not supplement public benefits. So we're not there to replace public benefits. We're there to supplement. So we don't pay for, usually if they're on SSI, food, housing, or utilities. And then, so with a pooled special needs trust, it's a pooled trust has to be administered by a nonprofit organizations. And I think that's one of the things that people really like, because we're not out there to make a huge profit. The master trust agreement is already in place. So when it's an individual trust, you would go to someone like Emily to create the trust document. If it's not a lot of money, and we do this with a lot of accident injury settlements where they can just join our pool, they've already been approved by Social Security and Access. So it's instant, it takes a day or two to join. And so that's attractive to a lot of, when the settlements are a little smaller, and it really doesn't make sense to get an individual trust drafted and sent over to get approved. The assets are exempt under public benefits. Again, at death, the money goes back to Medicaid if there's an amount due. It's pretty much the same thing kind of as the trust. I think one of the biggest things is just that it's usually faster to fund because it's the document's already created. And again, they're usually, I'm sorry, what?
I was just going to interrupt for 1 second. So I think for a lot of people, when you say that they can join the pool, what you mean is that we just need an appropriate person who can actually sign a joinder agreement.
Correct.
And so because we already have a trust document, so if you come to me, I draft a new trust for each person who comes to me who needs a special needs trust. When somebody is going to use a pooled special needs trust, that trust document has already been drafted and edited and sent to Altex and sent to Social Security. They've seen it. And then the new beneficiary or their guardian or parent or grandparent then just signs an agreement that says, hey, I want to be a part of this, but their money is held separately in terms of accounted for separately. So we don't use one beneficiary's, one person has $1 million and somebody else has 10,000.
Right.
We're pooling, you pool the money together for investment purposes. And so, the fees for everybody are less expensive because we have this whole group of people, but it's just to sign the joinder agreement.
Yeah, it is. And I'll go over the pool a little in a few more slides, but yeah, Emily is correct that it's already drafted and ready to go. So people can just, the appropriate person, the court, the beneficiary, a parent, a guardian can just sign the document and it's ready to go. So that's kind of one of the advantages of that. So in the third party trusts, it's usually parents that are funding it. Other family members can contribute to it. Again, there's, protected from creditors and lien holders, and the beneficiary does not have the legal authority to revoke the trust. So that's really important because it's not the beneficiary's own money, because if it was, it would go into a self-settled. It is the parent's money, and the beneficiary gets to use it basically during their lifetime. And then upon death, it goes to whoever their family has named as the remainder beneficiaries. And kind of the same things here with there's no payback provision when it's a third party, goes to family members or whoever the parent's name is the remainder beneficiary. But again, it's not to replace public benefits. It's just there to enhance it or supplement them.
And if I could interrupt one more time,
Sure.
I'm sorry, Liz. So
No,
I think
thank
one of
you.
the, yeah, I think one of the things that really scares families is when you say it won't be used for food, shelter, or utilities, because obviously that tends to be the largest expense that would exist. And so it's not that it can't be used, but the trustee has to weigh the benefit of if there's going to be a decrease in benefits or how it might impact benefits. So for SSI purposes, there would be a decrease in how much that beneficiary may receive from SSI,
Right.
but it may still be that the trustee is going to pay all those expenses, right?
Exactly. And we do, I mean, we take into account how much money is in the trust. That's the first thing that we look at. If there's $1 million and we need to supplement the trust, or if they're on SSDI and we can, it just depends on the public benefits. And I just was not trying to get too involved in the trust aspect of it, but we do pay for food, housing, and utilities on occasion when it makes sense. It just depends that, each individual is different and what their needs are and how much money there is. So we kind of weigh, what do we need to do? I mean, we have an individual right now that we are supplementing with housing, and it's not a lot, but he needed it to be an assisted living because he can't afford it on his SSI and he doesn't have a housing voucher. So, we are supplementing, and there's the dollar for dollar reduction up to 1/3. So it just depends on the situation, and we take a look at all of it. But thank you for clarifying that, Emily. So the biggest difference between the pooled trust and individual trusts are, again, the pooled trusts are always managed by a nonprofit organization. As Emily said, the master trust agreement is in place, and families, it's really easy to join. They can join by signing the joinder agreement. And again, the individual, a parent, the guardian, or the court can do self-settled on third-party trusts, on individual trusts, and then third-party, typically it's the parent signing it and creating the document. And then, as Emily mentioned before, all the assets are pooled together for investment purposes. So you think of kind of like a bank or a pension where all the money is in one pot. We have different asset allocations. So there's 5 different asset allocations that we can pick from within each pool. And we decide, this person has a lot of money and isn't spending a lot, so we might put it in this asset allocation, but all the families see is their piece of the pie. So we have a sub-trust accounting platform, so families can log into the platform and all they see is their investment. They don't see everybody else's. So if you have $1 million in, it's still your $1 million, but it's just pooled together for investment purpose. Same thing banks do. They do exactly the same thing. They have different asset allocations and they put the trust into whatever asset allocation is appropriate. So operates the same way. And then the individual trusts are, instead of being part of the pool, they're held in separate investment accounts, but usually we still have the same asset allocations. It's just that the fees are a little bit higher because when you're in the pool and there's $20 million in the pool, the fees are going to be a lot lower than if there's $500,000 in an individual account. So not a huge difference, but it's going to be a little bit less. And then individual trusts can be managed by an individual. So families can name another family member as a trustee, a fiduciary can act as a trustee, a bank, or again, a pooled trust organization can be named as the successor trustee. And one of the important aspects of the individual trust is they can hold real estate. We hold in trust so that we can pay like property taxes and things like that. And then sometimes we have families that have, certain individual investments they might want to carry over, or mineral rights is kind of a rare thing, but we do have one trust that has some mineral rights. So those are held in an individual trust. So certain types of trustees, as I kind of mentioned on the other page, if you have an individual trust, you can go to a bank. Usually banks have higher deposit thresholds, so a lot of them went over $250,000 or $500,000 before they want to administer it, and they might not administer special needs trust. So oftentimes we have banks that will send us the special needs trust either because they're too small for them or they're just not able to handle the rules and regulations around administering a special needs trust. There's fiduciaries out there. A lot of fiduciaries, some have a big office, but sometimes it's just one person. And if that person gets sick, you're kind of out of luck. Or individuals. So we get a lot of families that name a sibling as the trustee, and it happens quite a lot. Where they'll call us and they're like, I don't want to be the trustee. So they'll resign and name us as the trustee because it's you get into the public benefits and it's complicated. I know I email Emily a lot of questions, sometimes around complicated situations. And, I think we know a lot of stuff, but for someone that doesn't know anything about public benefits, the rules are daunting. There's a lot to it. Attorneys can serve as trustee, and then other pooled trust organizations. We accept, we have trusts that are like, $3,000 that, so we take trusts of any size, but most banks or, most organizations won't take anything that small, but because we're a charitable organization, we take trusts of any size, and then all of our fees are on a sliding scale. So obviously if someone's putting in $5,000, their fee is maybe $45 a month versus someone who, is putting in, $500,000. So some of the advantages to using a pooled trust, again, we can become successor tree of individual trusts, of support trusts. We do conservatorships, we do income only trusts, which not very many people need because they're complicated, and then the pooled trusts. And we also have a staff of individuals who are knowledgeable in administering the trust. So 99% of our trusts are special needs trusts. So that's basically what we specialize in, as opposed to banks who might, have one or two people who are knowledgeable about special needs trusts. And a lot of banks just don't want to be in that arena anymore because it is complicated. Some of the other advantages to using a pooled trust organization is, again, we know about the federal laws, the POMS, the Program Operating Manual that Social Security puts out. We're familiar with that. And if we don't have the answer, we ask Emily. We provide assistance to the beneficiaries and their representatives reporting to government agencies. So we do all the reporting, especially on the self-settled trusts. When they come in, we notify, and the third party, we notify Social Security, we notify Access, if they have housing, whoever we have to notify, we send out those letters. And then we help them on their annual reporting. If there's, we get audited on occasion where they want to have a bunch of documents going way back, we provide all of that. We keep really good records of everything. And it provides continuity of care. So we're not dependent on one person. We have a whole team there to help our families. Some other benefits are, so like I talked about in the beginning, providing those long-term care plans, sitting down and talking to families about, what kind of life do they want the beneficiary to have? What does it look like? What tools need to be put into place for that? We provide the continuation of support. So if families are taking their, child to day programs or to church, we can provide those services. So one of the advantages of the pooled trusts are that we call boots on the ground. So we differ from a bank in that we have social workers that out and provide services. So sometimes we take people to church, or we can Uber them to church if they're high functioning. We can go to doctor's appointments with them. We can take them, shopping, grocery shopping. We have beneficiaries that our social workers they go out and they go to a movie together, or they'll go to the zoo, or we can do anything. We can provide any service that a family services. So we're not just administering the trust, but we're providing that whole continuum of support, the support coordination to make sure that the the beneficiary's life continues like it did when the family member was there. And I think that's super important for families. So the component, one of the most important things is the well-being of the beneficiary. And I think that kind of sums it up, making sure, again, that beneficiary, their life continues after mom and dad die. It continues to operate, mostly the same way. And we've done so many different things for families. We have a beneficiary right now. He had a trailer in Tucson and mom passed away. And the brother was named as trustee and said, I don't want to be the trustee. You could be the successor trustee. So named us as a successor trustee. And, we went out immediately to view his living situation because his brother said, his mobile home needed some repairs. Well, the mobile home was really not habitable. I don't know if any of the family had actually gone out there because mom had been sick for a while and looked at the state of it. So we ended up buying another fifth wheel for the beneficiary because the mobile home really, the floor was caving in and it was just awful. So, we really provide that oversight. A bank, I don't think would go out and do that. And I'm not saying anything against banks. I'm just saying that's one of the things is we really are involved with the beneficiaries' lives. And any pooled trust, there's pooled trusts like ours all over the United States. Some of the larger ones that are national don't really provide those services. Sometimes they'll subcontract that out, but the local ones do. And there's the National Plan Alliance is an organization that we belong to. And you can go to their website if you have family members that are out of state, and it'll give you the name of pooled trust organizations. And I think we're in like 15 states now. I think there's 30 organizations that are part of our National Plan Alliance. And the National Alliance provides a lot of support for the different pooled trust organizations. So we do like executive director meetings. We share documents. We share, struggles that we're having with beneficiaries and problem solving. And all of the organizations that belong to the National Plan Alliance must provide the wraparound services that we call kind of the boots on the ground. So if anybody has family in other states, that's a really great resource. And then some of the types of distributions that you can make from either type of trust, pooled or individual, our cell phone, we have a lot of pets. We pay for pet bills, clothing, toiletries. Dental is a huge one. So that's probably one of the first things when a trust funds is, I need some dental work. So we do a lot of dental work. Moving, we've bought and sold homes for beneficiaries. That's another thing that we do. We move beneficiaries when, maybe the lease has gone up or they need to move into assisted living. We provide that oversight. And if the house is held in trust, in an individual trust, we can, buy the house or sell the house and buy something maybe that's smaller. We apply for long-term care for beneficiaries. We move them into assisted living when we realize that they're not able to, live independently anymore. So we provide a lot of different things. And so Plan of Arizona, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been around for, 20 something years now, almost 30, I think 26 years. We're part of the National Plan Alliance, and we're a charitable corporate trustee. So we, as I kind of mentioned before, do pooled trusts, individual trusts, support trusts, but we also can just provide support coordination for a beneficiary. So if we have families that maybe, the siblings do want to administer the trust, we can provide some guidance and help for those families. And then we can also provide the support coordination on a pay, another kind of thing that we do. And that's helpful. Or sometimes mom and dad are still living, and we are actually getting a lot of this right now. Mom and dad are still living, but they're tired and they don't want to be in charge anymore of the money. So they'll fund the trust partially, and then they'll, do a pay as you go where they just pay as you go for services. And then we step in and provide the services. We deal with the beneficiary. So they're calling us for the things that they need. So it kind of gives mom and dad a break. And we're out there servicing them. And one of the nice things about that is we get to know the beneficiary, why mom and dad are still alive. So it's not like, oh gosh, who's this person that's going to be, I'm going to have to ask for money now. They already know who we are. They're already used to working with us. So we always encourage families, if you are going to name us a successor trustee, or you are thinking about joining our pool, let's have those annual meetings. Let's get to know the beneficiary. And if we can step in, if mom and dad go on vacation and you just want us to step in for a month because you're gone, and we have families that live, half the year out of state. So the 6 months that they're out of state, we step in and provide services. And it's a great way for us to get to know the beneficiary. And I guess one of my favorite things is, who will care for my loved one when I'm gone? And I know that goes back to my mom always asking that. And that's kind of why I do what I do for my sister, who she always worried what's going to happen to her. So now we know what will happen, because I'll be there, or plan will be there. So here's just some of the other services that we provide, the future care planning, as I mentioned, the support services, advocacy. We can help with benefits. We do a lot of home visits and monitoring, care management. We're also representative payee for Social Security, and we mostly do that for our trust beneficiaries. And we're also a federal fiduciary for the VA. So we have a couple of beneficiaries that get that benefit. We also just have, a lot of beneficiaries. They'll just call us for advice on things. So we're kind of become an extended family, which isn't always easy, but we love what we do, and we're here to support our families and our beneficiaries. So that is all I have, and we will open it up to questions, and I'll stop sharing here. Okay.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions. There aren't any in the Q&A or the chat. And if not, I'll just blather on for a minute or two. Because sometimes I think, when any of us do a presentation, we're so used to our own words and what those mean, and we're sort of in our own industry. So I hope that all of you who are listening understand that this is a great option when maybe the family is not the perfect person to be the trustee. And even if they're the perfect person to be the advocate for your loved one, doing all of the reporting, as Liz talked about, making sure that distributions are made appropriately so that the person doesn't lose or diminish their benefits, having somebody who's boots on the ground to go check or arrange, to get somebody to and from a doctor's appointment. This is a nice opportunity to kind of have that professional service, and yet that other person who's the family member can remain the advocate and call and say, hey, Liz, I'm really concerned. I haven't heard from my brother in a few days. Could somebody just go down and check on him? Or he's called to complain that the fifth wheel is leaking because it's raining. Can somebody go out there and take a look at it? And so it doesn't put all of that pressure on a family member to have to do all of those things. So
exactly. And we love working with family members. It helps us when we have siblings that are, maybe they don't want to be the trustee, but they want to be involved, because it's teamwork. So we just kind of create this team around the beneficiary with whatever programs they're involved in, with whatever family members want to be involved, and then us, and it just provides more oversight for the beneficiary.
Yeah, so one of the questions was whether, I'm not sure exactly, so it says, I joined late, but you serve as a guide for parents and assist with care for the beneficiary. So just again, to reiterate, so Liz is the executive director of Plan of Arizona, which runs a bunch of trusts here in the state to help make sure that the funds are managed correctly. But along with being trustee, they also have the ability to do some care coordination and be that boots on the ground. So it's a little bit more than what you would typically get maybe from a different corporate entity who might hire out case management or hire out somebody to do other services. They have the ability not to do everything under the sun, but to do a lot of the things internally. So they know the beneficiary, they know what the budget is, they know what's okay to pay for, how to make the payment without disrupting benefits. to do all of those other things. And for contact information, all of you will receive a link to this recording, as well as contact information for both myself and for Liz. So you'll have that on there. And so let's see, it says, you said this is an Arizona plan. What happens if the beneficiary moves out of state? So what does happen, Liz, if somebody moves across the country and you're the trustee?
So if we can administer the trust remotely and it makes sense for us to do that, we can. We do have a couple that we administer, and then we subcontract out with other plan alliances. So there's one in Colorado, and they actually use us. They administer the trust remotely from Colorado, and then we provide the services. Or we can port it to, if it makes sense, we can port it to another pooled trust organization in another state, which we've done also. So like I said, there's 27 organizations like ours, but there's also some big national ones. And so sometimes if there's not one in a state, like I don't think there's a pooled trust that's state specific to Las Vegas, to Nevada. So we might send that to one of the national programs that can administer in that state. So it just depends on the situation.
Yeah, so the statutes allow for it to go from a pooled trust to another pooled trust. So that's not an issue. The person's on SSI benefits, but not on all tax benefits. It could go from an individual to a pooled or the other direction. But if they're on all tax right now, we don't have it in our rules yet.
Right.
So another question is kind of who do you use for investments, or what's the platform?
So we use an organization called TrueLink Financial, and they cater to the pooled trust industry. So there's a lot of pooled trust organizations out there that use them. So Charles Schwab is the custodian. So all of the assets are held at Schwab. And then TrueLink provides the investment management and the subtrust accounting platform, which is really great because families can log online and see statements and see what's gone in and out of the trust. It's super user friendly. They also have what's called a TrueLink card, which I know Emily is familiar with. It's a prepaid Visa card that's been approved by Social Security. And it's a great way for us to get funds to the beneficiary. So we can load their TrueLink. They'll call us and say, gosh, I need $300 for clothing. I need a new jacket and boots for winter. We load the card, and if they're on SSI, they mail us the receipt. So we have documentation for everything. So it's just, or if they have an emergency car repair or the dishwasher goes out, there's a lot of ways we can get funds to the beneficiary, but that is a great one. And TrueLink provides that. And Emily's familiar with TrueLink as well. They're a great group of people.
Yeah, I always say, the trustee isn't with you when you go to Target or Walmart or whatever it might be. So those TrueLink cards are terrific, and they look like any other prepaid debit card. It doesn't have any stigma attached to it, like I'm a person, who's on welfare, or I'm a person who can't manage their own money. It's just a prepaid debit card, and the trustee can see what's happening. So if the beneficiary is using it in a way that is not appropriate because it may impact benefits, the trustee can also cut off and say, make it so that the card won't work at certain places,
Exactly.
Make it so they can't get cash, so we don't have to worry about them taking the money out and losing benefits for that month. So it is really a great platform.
It really is. They have a whole section where you can turn off and on. So if we know the beneficiary isn't good, we can say, okay, you can only go to, Kohl's to buy your clothing. And that's the only thing that we're going to allow him to go to, the only store, because they can't buy food or anything there. So it's really a wonderful card and very helpful.
Yeah. So another question was whether it makes sense to consult with us or another attorney who does what I do before signing on with plan. And we're always happy, as any other attorney who does special needs planning, to kind of talk through with the client what the options are, what the pros and cons would be. I'm also, as Liz said, we have relationships with personal injury attorneys who then need our help to get those settlements approved by the court and money funded into a special needs trust. And so if it's going to go to a pool, then I can be on the phone, or again, any other special needs attorney with Liz or another pooled trust company, because oftentimes the family doesn't know what kind of questions to ask. And so it's an opportunity for me to say, you know, how long does it take to set up, and how are the fees billed, and what should they expect, and what are the ways that the money can be used, to sort of walk through questions, because when it's new to you, you don't even know what to ask. So we're there to also guide people and make sure they get answers to the questions, or interview more than one pooled trust company to see what's the best fit. You know, who do you feel most comfortable with? So we're always here trying to be as helpful as we can. So
Exactly.
and then I just want to reiterate again, remember the first party special needs trust, whether it's one I draft, whether it's one a different lawyer drafts, whether it's a pooled trust, that's money that comes to the beneficiary. So if you don't do an estate plan and you leave money outright to the beneficiary of for a person who's on SSI or Altex, then in order for them to retain those benefits, the money's going to have to go into some kind of a first party special needs trust, most likely, other than ABLE accounts, which is a whole different conversation. And those are the kind of trusts where money left in the trust will go back to the state that provided Medicaid benefits for that beneficiary up to the amount of the benefits provided, or if they provided $1 million and there's 5,000 left in the trust, then for the trust to pay off those debts. It only has to be paid back, remember, when the beneficiary passes away, or if you're trying to do some kind of an early termination. Don't have to pay it back during the lifetime of the beneficiary. But if you do planning, you can have that inheritance go into a third party special needs trust, pooled or otherwise, and you don't have that payback. So Liz has a sister with some disabilities. I have a niece who has Down syndrome. And so there's a trust for my niece, Marissa, that says, you know, her parents' will says the share for her goes to that special needs trust. I don't have any kids. So my estate plan says the share for Marissa goes to that special needs trust. The grandparents' estate plan says the share for Marissa goes to that special needs trust. And then she can keep all of her benefits. And yet the trustee will have money to pay for those things that we all know the government benefits don't pay for, like dental care, like cell phone bills, like getting her hair done, and you know, things of that nature. So keep it straight in your head that they're different and they have different purposes. So you can leave money to a beneficiary who's on benefits of any amount, as long as it goes into a third party special needs trust. We don't have that scary payback.
And I think one of the advantages too is anyone, as Emily was saying, once the third party trust is established, whether it's pooled or individuals, any third party can fund money. So you set that up, and you know, just like Emily said, parents, grandparents, friends, siblings, whoever can leave money into that trust.
Yes. And then for your first party special needs trusts, only one beneficiary per trust. So each,
Right.
If you have 2 kids with autism, you need a separate first party special needs trust for each of those children. Unlike, you could do a third party special needs trust that's a pot trust for multiple beneficiaries if they're disabled. Sometimes that makes sense and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
So I don't see any other questions. Great conversation. I so appreciate all of you joining today. As I said, you'll get the link and contact information for both Liz and myself. Always a pleasure. Liz is very hands-on and very easy to get a hold of, which is terrific. It's just excellent to know that we can reach her when we need to. So thank you for your time today. I know, Liz, you have lots of beneficiaries you have to take care of. So really appreciate it. And thank you to all of those of you who decided to join us today. And we hope to see you next month for our next webinar. So have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you later.
Have a great day. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.